Board members, do you have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, would y'all like a rebuttal?
Yeah.
A rebuttal to the rebuttal?
Just to clarify something, that the district, every substitute teacher that applies goes through a national criminal history check through a fingerprinting process. And that's what brought up the allegations in this circumstance. We do a national criminal history check, and we also do a state criminal history check through the Department of Public Safety records. Both of those are done on every substitute for employment. Also, it's done on all of the students. So to say we don't do background checks, we do a national background check and we do a state background check on all of the students.
And I'm sorry, if I said they don't do background checks, that's not what I meant to say. They don't do central registry checks, is what I meant.
What is the difference in that, may I ask?
I don't know what type of background check she's referring to. We do the National Clearinghouse, what's the official name of it?
My law, Senate Bill 9 requires us to do that, and it goes through the fact clearinghouse.
Would that not show?
And that is the new database created through SBEC and the DPS, and it goes through the database, which is by the FBI. So we get two histories back, one that's a state-based and one that's a national-based to the FBI. And that's through state law. State law requires every employee after January 1st, 2008 to undergo a fingerprint to better secure the identity and the criminal history check. Before that time, name-based database or name-based checks were performed through the DPS database, which was just a state database, and it was based on your name and birth date. And you would get sometimes you would get more than one name come back, and sometimes it was you had to search to make sure you had the right identity. Now with the fingerprinting, it takes care of any identity problems that may occur with an individual.
Does that not pick up records also through CPS?
No, I believe so, not unless it's a criminal charge.
That's what I was saying. By law, they have to do what Mr. Gibson was talking about, and if I misspoke and said that they did, and I didn't mean to say that. What they don't do is check through central registry, which would bring up anything with CPS. You may have substitutes who have been investigated with CPS for, you know, abusing their own children at home or something, or for any multitude of reasons. And it appears to me the district is saying, they've got this really high safety standard that we're not going to let Joelle Ogletree, no matter what. The governor of Texas says she can teach, we're not going to let her. When they do have the right to do a central registry check, school districts do have that right, and this school district chooses not to. It's something that only, I believe, law enforcement and people who work with the elderly and people who work with children can access that, and this school chooses not to. And that's something else you could find out about all your employees and all your substitutes.
Could I ask what the statement I put this way that we don't do reference checks on our substitutes?
That has not been practiced. We have not.
So we do not do that.
We do the criminal history check. If there's any question in the criminal history, we don't contact references. We just don't employ them as a sub if we have any questions with the criminal history background.
And people without problems on the criminal history, they don't do checks either. They just don't do checks for anyone. Criminal history.
Anytime a person subs, they get reviewed by the teacher and by the principal, so there is a review process.
Do the teachers turn those in, all the teachers who have a substitute?
Teachers can turn in how their sub performed when they were in their class.
But is it required?
20 years I've been with them.
Well, that's
So
your
before we get into this back and
Yeah.
forth here, let's direct it up here. Okay.
Is that required that the
This year
substitutes
we
are
did
evaluated?
initiate a feedback process through our ASOP program. And there's a series of questions. I don't know that it's been mandated. If there are, we did implement that this year.
So in
There's a
that-
feedback process.
In that situation, the substitute would be allowed to work, and then if something goes wrong, they wouldn't be allowed to anymore, I guess, but y'all allow them first. They're allowed to work ahead of time.
They pass the criminal history check, which is the initial screening process.
Just as I did. state of Texas is very well aware of my criminal history check. TA knows. I did the best I could. I contacted Dr. Karen Little, and she said, those allegations, yes, we know about them. You have been through the process. The process has cleared you. You're clear. And she said, like Mr. Rotan said, you know, we can't mandate people hire you, but that is not, those allegations are not a reason not to hire you.
I would, yes. Yeah, I would say this, in the substitute hiring process, that when we get those criminal history back, if I would get any criminal history that had a offense, and I did explain this, a Title V type offense, which involves crimes with minor children, elderly, assault in that situation, and even if it was just an indictment and dismissed, I would still have concern enough in the initial process to not approve. And that's what I did in this case. I didn't approve it. We had an informal conference, went through the process there, and that's where we are here through that process. But if I would get any with those offenses, and even some of lesser offenses that are Class A, B, C misdemeanors, I have a matrix that I work through on that. You know, I would not approve initially on that concern, and that's what I've done in this case.
And that goes against what the children are taught in this school. That's a really scary statement right there, because anyone who has an accusation on an indictment, anybody who has an indictment, he's saying he would not approve. That's not what our justice system is set up for. That is not what any system in America and the state is set up for. That's not what the teaching system in Texas is set up for. You can have that allegation, you go through. If you're cleared, you're cleared. There's nothing you can do to make that go away. According to that scenario, I can be 100 years old and will never be allowed to substitute teach. That's not right.